Victor Echo 4 Bravo Delta Echo back again with the Gameboy Pocket mod. This video is going to cover lighting up the clear buttons. So I've got some nice blue buttons for the Game Boy, A and B and the D-pad. And I've also got a clear blue power switch as well that I will light up. And I got a set of LEDs. So the first thing you got to do is to disassemble the units. Simple enough. There is two screws, and then two more underneath the battery compartment. And you will need the tri-wing screwdriver in order to remove those. This one was bought from Handheld Legend when I ordered the backlights and stuff. So this is going to be the front that I'm going to use. This is actually an older unit, as it doesn't have the power light. So it's a little bit more of a rarer unit, but the unit that I'm going to be using the power light, because the glass screen protector I've got has the port for the power LED, just like this one here. And you can notice the difference in the two motherboards. This one, on the older unit, has a little plastic pin that fits through the PCB, whereas the newer unit, right where that plastic pin used to be, is where the power LED indicator is. And there's the little port right there. So basically what I'm going to do with this one is knock that plastic pin off, and I'm just going to drill a hole that will allow the light to illuminate through and shine through the screen protector. And that will give us the power indicator. So once you get everything removed here, you take the PCB off, disconnect the display. Try not to damage the tiny little clips here, they are quite fragile. So disconnect the display from the PCB. This PCB, again, I'm not going to be using because it's doesn't have the power LED. It is a fully functional PCB. Probably keep it for parts. I'm not likely to use it on anything else. We'll get rid of the old buttons here. Pretty much stripped down. This is the beat up shell. That's the good back, and so we'll put the two beat up pieces together. The good shell will keep, and you want to carefully remove the LCD by gently applying pressure right up at the top, and it should just pry off nicely. So that burning that you see in here is actually sun burning, and that's actually damage to the polarizing layer, which that'll disappear once we remove the polarizing layer to put the backlight behind it. So once you got the LCD removed, you're going to take it and stick it aside somewhere where it's not going to get scratched or ruined. This area right here is where you want to be very careful. This little piece here, this is where the two ribbon cables meet and are soldered together. If these come apart, they are extremely difficult to resolder. That's how the first LCD that I lost during the recapping of the MGB went the way of the dodo. That couple of the contacts broke loose there, and I could not resolder them. So put it in a safe place, somewhere where no one's going to touch it until you're ready to do the backlight mod. So first what we're going to do is we're going to make some holes here for where we're going to put the LEDs. So one option is, if you space your LEDs back enough, you can actually use those ports here, but I like to cut a couple extra holes. So what I will probably do is I'll probably cut one down here and one up here somewhere. And you're going to want to just double check your PCB. There's nothing actually here to obstruct it, so anything underneath, below the lip of the plastic here will be fine. So you're just going to cut a hole here and a hole here and remove a section to put the LEDs through. So for the D-pad, you're going to want to try and get the LEDs that you're putting on the to light the D-pad in the center of the cross piece here, right in here. So you want to try and get them one across from each other. There's not a lot of room in the Gameboy Pocket here. Likely what I'll do is I'll make a section here, remove a section here, and remove a section here in between these, next to these pegs. Try not to knock the pegs off because the pegs locate the silicone carbon pad. But you want to shine the LEDs in towards the center from either side, and that'll give you a nice even light. Otherwise, if you just shine one across, because the D-pad button is so large, it'll be brighter on one half than the other, so it's a good idea to have two. The LEDs I'm going to be using are these right here. They are 5 units here, bright LEDs with a resistor, a surface mount on a small PCB. They are very small, as you can see, and they are perfect for using for your lighting mods. These LEDs came from Handheld Legend. So these are the guys I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by making my cuts. I'm going to do one over here on this side of the button, and one over here on this side of the button. And then I'm going to get my notches for the D-pad cut out. Another thing I'm going to probably do right now before I start attaching wiring to the thing here is chop this chunk out here, this peg, and drill my hole for the power LED, and then wire it up. So yeah, so the other thing that you're going to want is some fine wire. What I plan on using for the mod is I've got a whole reel of this ribbon cable that I picked up surplus for dirt cheap quite so many years ago, and I just plan on stripping that back and using this to hook up all the LED modules. So with a little bit of patience and some diligence, I've made my notches. So I got one here, one here, one over here, and one up here. You don't have to get the cut straight flush to the bottom of the plastic, because the PCB that the LED is attached to is going to raise up the actual LED itself a little bit, so it shouldn't be obstructed, but do try to get it fairly close, as close as you can. The other thing that you're going to want to do is just when you're done cutting your holes, like, you're going to be very gentle with this, because these edges have a tendency of wanting to come away from the actual case. So you want to go slow, be gentle, and not apply too much intrusive force on it, and just kind of go with it. Once you start cutting into the plastic, you'll know what I mean. At first there's a little bit of resistance to it, but then after you get the cut started, it almost just cuts like butter. And then you just, once you've cut both sides, pry the piece back, and it should snap off right at the base of the chassis. What you're going to want to do though when you're done is just double check the insides and just make sure there's no burrs, because you don't want your buttons to get snagged. And then obviously once you're done and everything's cut out, you just put your buttons in there and just make sure that there's nothing that's in the way of snagging your buttons. The D-pad is pretty loose, but the A B buttons are a little tighter in their guides, so you just want to make sure that there's nothing that is applying any resistance to it, because you don't want your button to get stuck down when you're playing a game, and then have to take the whole unit apart to try and find a tiny little burr of plastic. So just do that ahead of time. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take each LED module, we're going to wire it up, and we're going to hot glue them right in the ports like that, and they will light up the buttons. So I'm going to plan on, in the DMG, I just kind of ran a line from each one and then paralleled them all together. I'm going to try and daisy chain them this time to try and reduce the amount of wiring, just because, well, the Game Boy Pocket doesn't have a lot of wiring in the first place, so I'm going to try and daisy chain them to reduce that. These guys are pretty small, so you're going to want something to hold them still with when you're soldering. What I've been using is one of my multimeter lead sets came with crocodile leads, and you can just clamp onto the edge of it, keep the solder end out, and then I usually put pliers or something on top of it to hold it stable and solder away. Then we'll hot glue them to the chassis. The other thing I did is I used my drill with a small step bit on it and drilled out right underneath where that peg was. I broke the peg off and then just basically took the X-Acto knife to the edge of the peg and gave it a slice, and then just pried it off and it broke off, and drilled a hole right in the spot there so that the power LED will shine through. And if we take the motherboard with the power LED, slap it on the chassis here, power LED is right there, right where it should be, and that'll work fantastically with the nice glass cover. So here are the first two LED modules daisy chained. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but these modules actually do have screen printed polarity, so it is very easy to tell what the polarity is when you're wiring them up. Those are going to be for the A B buttons, and I'm going to wire them like so. I'm going to put the one here, then I'm going to run the wire on the back here, put this one here, run the wire down over here to this LED, up around here to this LED, and then through the space between the PCB and the side of the case here to get up to the other side. And that's where I'm going to solder to the power. So there's going to be a total of 5 LEDs. These 4 will be daisy chained. The final one, the power switch, that one will likely just be soldered to a power point over here. So we've got all 4 of the LEDs installed, glued in place, tack the wires in place along the way. This will be the power lead that's going to come up along the side of the PCB that'll attach to a switched power point. And I've got the leads here taped to the ends of a couple AAA batteries, and just for a test, and they do indeed light at 3 volts, so there won't be any need for powering them off the regulator, which is good because I don't want to overheat the regulator. And the last thing to do, I don't know if you can see it on the video or not, if my camera will focus on it here. Any little bit of bulge from your hot glue that comes through, just make sure you clean it up and shave it off, and make sure your buttons don't snag. And that is how you do backlit button mod on a Game Boy. This is the same principle for any Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, original Game Boy. It's the same thing. It all really boils down to just a matter of finding out the best place to route the wires and where to mount your LEDs, where there's enough clearance.